There is something you have been avoiding. Not someday, not eventually, right now. You knew exactly what it was the moment you heard those words. No one had to tell you. Your mind found it before I finished the sentence. Maybe it's a difficult conversation. Maybe it's forgiving someone. Maybe it's asking for forgiveness. Maybe it's leaving a place that no longer belongs in your life. Maybe it's taking the first step toward a dream that has terrified you for years. Whatever it is, it already has your name. Here's what most people never realize. The biggest obstacles in life are rarely standing in front of us. More often, they're quietly waiting behind the things we refuse to face. And every day we choose avoidance. That obstacle grows, not because the problem becomes bigger, but because we become smaller. Fear expands. Confidence shrinks. Excuses become more convincing. The distance between who we are and who we could become gets wider without us even noticing. This is one of life's cruelest paradoxes. The life you desperately want may be hidden behind the one thing you've spent years trying to escape. And until you understand why human beings avoid discomfort, you may spend decades praying for change while running from the very path that leads to it. Today, we're going to uncover one of the quietest forces that holds people back. Not failure, not weakness, not a lack of talent, avoidance. Because the cost of avoiding what matters is far greater than the pain of facing it. The word avoidance often sounds harmless, almost responsible, almost wise. We tell ourselves we're simply waiting for the right moment, when life is less complicated, when we're more prepared, when we feel stronger. But what if the right moment was never meant to come first? What if courage was never designed to appear before action? But because of it, this is where so many lives quietly drift off course, not through one catastrophic decision, but through hundreds of invisible postponements. I'll call tomorrow, I'll start next month, I'll deal with it later, I'm just not ready. Little by little, avoidance stops being something we do. It becomes someone we are. And that's why its damage is so difficult to recognize. Failure leaves evidence. Avoidance leaves comfort. A comfort that slowly becomes a prison. From the outside, everything still looks normal. You go to work, you smile, you make plans. You tell yourself you're moving forward. Yet deep inside, there's a quiet voice asking the same question over and over again. What if I had just begun? Ancient wisdom has always understood something modern culture often forgets. Fear grows in darkness. Truth grows in the light. The longer we refuse to face something, the more power we unknowingly give it. Most fears don't become giants because they're real. They become giants because they're never confronted. And the human mind has an incredible ability to exaggerate what it refuses to examine. Sometimes the monster disappears the moment you finally turn around and look at it. There is a reason why the hardest conversations are usually the ones that matter most. The hardest decision, the hardest apology, the hardest truth. They all demand the same thing, that you step into discomfort before you see the reward. This principle appears everywhere in life. A seed disappears beneath the soil before it becomes a tree. Gold passes through fire before it shines. Muscles break down before they become stronger. Growth has always required a season that feels uncomfortable. Yet we keep believing our lives should be different. We expect confidence before action, peace before surrender, success before sacrifice. Life rarely works that way. Psychologists have studied avoidance for decades. One pattern appears again and again. The more a person avoids something that creates anxiety, the more anxiety gains control over that person's life. Avoidance doesn't solve fear, it trains fear. Every retreat sends the same message to your brain: you escaped, so there really was danger. Without realizing it, you become your own teacher, and every lesson tells your mind to keep running. This is why avoidance becomes addictive. It offers immediate relief, but sends a hidden invoice later. The relief lasts minutes. The regret can last years. There comes a moment when every person has to decide which pain they are willing to carry. The temporary discomfort of facing reality, or the permanent discomfort of wondering what could have been. Most people imagine courage as something dramatic, a battlefield, a heroic speech, a defining moment witnessed by the world. But real courage is usually invisible. It happens in quiet rooms, in ordinary mornings, in phone calls no one else hears, in the decision to stop pretending everything is fine. Some of the bravest people on earth will never be remembered by history, because their greatest victory wasn't over another person, it was over themselves. The philosopher Seneca once observed that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. How much of your life has been shaped by things that never actually happened? Conversations you rehearsed 100 times, rejections that existed only in your mind, disasters that never arrived. Meanwhile, life kept moving. Opportunities came and quietly left. Not because you lacked ability, but because fear convinced you to stay where you were. Avoidance has an incredible talent. It disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers, "Not today. Wait until you're ready. One more month." But readiness is one of the greatest illusions we believe. Very few people feel ready before changing their lives. Parents don't feel ready. Entrepreneurs don't feel ready. Leaders don't feel ready. The difference is not confidence. The difference is movement. They took one step, while everyone else waited for certainty. And certainty almost never comes before obedience to the next step. There is an ancient principle found across history, philosophy, and scripture. What you refuse to confront will eventually confront you. Ignore a small crack in the foundation, and one day the entire house begins to shift. Ignore a wound, and infection quietly spreads beneath the surface. Ignore bitterness, and it slowly reshapes your character. Life has a way of collecting unpaid debts, not to punish us, but because reality cannot be negotiated forever. The book of Proverbs repeatedly points toward this truth. The wise person does not simply seek comfort. The wise person seeks correction, because correction today prevents destruction tomorrow. That is one of the greatest differences between wisdom and foolishness. The foolish ask, "How can I avoid this?" The wise ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single question can change an entire life. Imagine if every obstacle became a classroom. Every criticism became an opportunity. Every uncomfortable conversation became an invitation to grow. Suddenly, the very things you feared would stop feeling like enemies. They would become instructors. And perhaps that's what you've been missing. The obstacle was never standing in your way. It was standing in your path because it had something to give you. Not every difficulty is sent to stop you. Some are placed there to shape you into someone capable of carrying what you've been praying for. The life you want may not be waiting on the other side of luck. It may be waiting on the other side of the conversation, the decision, the confession, or the first courageous step you've been postponing. Look back at your own life. The moments that changed you the most were probably not the moments that felt comfortable. They were the moments that demanded something from you: responsibility, humility, patience, faith. The greatest transformations rarely begin with excitement. They begin with surrender, with a quiet decision that says, "I will stop running." Not because the fear disappeared, but because the cost of staying the same finally became greater than the cost of changing. This is where so many people misunderstand growth. They think growth happens when life becomes easier. In reality, growth often begins when excuses become impossible to defend, when you stop negotiating with the voice that always says, "Tomorrow." Tomorrow is a dangerous word, not because tomorrow is bad, but because it quietly steals today. One postponed decision becomes another. One delayed conversation becomes another year. One avoided opportunity becomes another regret. And eventually, people wake up wondering where the time went. Time didn't disappear. It was exchanged. One comfortable excuse at a time. So ask yourself one honest question. What have you been avoiding? Not what someone else should change. Not what life has withheld from you. What have you been unwilling to face? Because hidden inside that answer may be the doorway to the next version of your life. Every meaningful life reaches a moment like this. A moment when no book can decide for you. No mentor can walk for you. No prayer can replace your next step, because there are roads that only courage can travel. Perhaps you've spent years asking God to open a door while quietly refusing to walk toward it. Perhaps you've been asking for peace while avoiding the conversation that would finally set you free. Perhaps you've been praying for a different future while protecting the habits, fears, or comforts that keep creating the same present. The truth is both challenging and hopeful. You are probably much closer to the life you want than you think. The distance may not be measured in years. It may be measured in one decision, one conversation, one act of forgiveness, one confession, one application, one phone call, one first step. History is full of ordinary people whose lives changed because they stopped waiting for certainty. They moved before they felt ready. They acted before fear disappeared. And somewhere along the journey, courage caught up with them. Maybe that's what needs to happen for you. Not another month of preparation, not another year of hesitation. Just one honest step in the direction you've been avoiding. Because the life you've been praying for may already be waiting. Not behind luck, not behind talent, not behind perfect timing, but behind the very thing you've been afraid to face. If this message challenged you, don't let it end here. Take one step today. Not tomorrow, today. And if this video encouraged you, subscribe to Made for More, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and join us for more messages about wisdom, faith, purpose, and personal growth.